It's time for Mr. Fundamental!
Presented by no one.
The Memphis Grizzlies were a pleasant surprise last year. Instead of being in the early lottery, they were competing for a playoff spot with a super young team. Not only were their players young, their front office imported some fresh blood as well. This helped the Grizzlies transition into the modern era on both ends of the floor, especially with Tyler Jenkins, who was an assistant under Mike Budenholzer. The Grizzlies got more media exposure this year with their young duo in the unexpected playoff contention. While the Grizzlies do something similar to other modern NBA teams, they made some adjustment to better suit the roster construction. So let's get into what the Grizzlies were doing. After shadowing Budenholzer, Jenkins carried the same principles as the Bucks entering his first head coaching stint. On the defensive end, they're basically doing the same thing as the Bucks. They got their perimeter defenders chasing over the top of screens and sagging JV in the paint. All they give up is a mid-range jumper. Teams like the Wolves prioritize points in the paint and threes. When T got into the paint, he didn't even look at the rim. The defense recovers, and JV gets a nice contest on Vonleh. JV isn't Brook Lopez, but he's still a big body in the paint. Here, Mitchell double pumps before missing the layup. Triple J took on the Giannis role as a secondary rim protector if he's near the paint as well. Guarding a non-shooting big, Triple J sags in the paint like JV and contests the floater into a miss. We can't forget about the future pairing of Triple J and Brandon Clark. Despite their athleticism, the Grizzlies still play conservative defense and get both of them to sink down. Whether they switch will be dependent on matchup. With Grant screening for Barton, switching Triple J and Crowder wouldn't be much of a difference. So they switch, and this stalls the offense. On a double screen that involved a stretch big, Triple J calls out for the late switch in case of a flare screen for KP. They take advantage of Triple J's defensive versatility and shut down the mass possession. The Grizzlies allowed the 12th least shots attempt in the restricted area, and that number should be higher if it wasn't for the amount of offensive boards they give up. What they do better than the Bucks is their willingness to play Triple J as center and switch when necessary. We saw what the Heat did to the Bucks in the playoffs because of Budenholzer's unwillingness to switch the pick and rolls. With that said, the Bucks template is still a great recipe to build a good regular season defensive team. On the other end of the floor, the Grizzlies went from being one of the slowest teams to being 6th in pace last season. Pushing the pace is the most effective source of offense for a young team and takes advantage of their young legs and energy as well. After the board, Morant sprints down the floor and collapses the defense, getting Brooks a lick my finger and check the win 3. The Grizzlies had the 5th most transition possessions, but were just average in percentile. With high flyers like Triple J, Clark, and Morant, this number would only go up in the future. The other things that Jenkins brought over was spacing. Every time the Grizzlies run an action, the paint is usually wide open, with multiple players spacing the floor. There's no arguing that the Grizzlies upped their 3-point attempts, and I think it was one of the highest in franchise history. Almost every single rotational member averaged a 3-point attempt per game. What the Grizzlies do differently is only leveraging the 3-ball instead of having their average shooters jack up threes. Let's have a look at the Bucks. Giannis is the engine to their offense, and his drive serves to suck and help defenders to generate looks from deep. This makes the game easier for the role players like Matthews and DiVincenzo, since they're attacking a scrambled and recovering defense. With the Bucks' modern shot profile, their role players were taught to take threes or shots at the basket. So a lot of times, they would be jacking up a deeper or slightly contested threes instead of attacking off the dribble. I broke this down in my Bucks bench video, where I pointed out switches like these will leave enough daylight for Bucks players to pull the trigger. A good statistical indication is that they take the 4th most 3 in the league, but are only 18th in 3-point percentage. Going back to the Grizzlies, Morant is like their 6'3" Giannis, acting as the engine to their offense. It doesn't matter whether it's one-on-one or pick and rolls. His drives is the first step to the Grizzlies' offense. And here, he draws the foul. Any sort of drives are an attempt to collapse the defense and create off-the-catch opportunities. The Grizzlies attempt around 31 threes per game, which is just 24th in the league, but almost 74% of the threes are catch-and-shoot attempts. This puts them 6th in the league in percentage of threes attempted off the catch. Without elite pull-up threats, the Grizzlies play to their strengths and rarely take off the dribble threes. Only 3 Grizzlies had the green light to take deeper threes or slightly contested ones like the Bucks. Those were Triple J, Dillon Brooks, and Jay Crowder. We could include Morant as well, when he ISOs or bails at the Grizzlies when the shot clock's running down. What the Grizzlies do differently is instead of jacking up threes, they'll attack right away to create another off-the-catch opportunity or get into their floater game. Most of the Grizzlies players have this sort of floater in their game, so when the defense is running them off the line and sagging their bigs in the paint, the Grizzlies get clean looks for the floaters. When Morant attacks off the catch, KCP is chasing while Dwight is containing in case of a dump off to JV. A quick hop into a floater lets Morant get it off and over the bouncy shot blocker for the clean swish. The Morant ISO causes the defense to collapse. On the kickout, other teams want Allen, a 40% 3-point shooter, to take the shot. The Grizzlies rather have him attacking this closeout to force the defense to rotate again, either creating a better look from deep or go with the running floater. These aren't just reserved for the perimeter players, since Clark is a master of floaters as well. Like I said before, the defense wants to prevent shots at the basket, so Jokic tries to beat Clark to the spot. The jab gets Jokic sinking even deeper, and when his momentum is bringing him backwards, Clark rises up for the floater. On the pick and roll, Jones hits Clark just below the free throw line. Check out how Robinson is pretty deep in the paint to discourage a drive by both Jones and Clark. So Clark just rises up and floats it over the shot blocker. When they do this again, Robinson was slightly higher up, but not high enough. That's because when Clark hops into the catch, his momentum is carrying him forward, and a power dribble could get him around Robinson. That slight of doubt is all Clark needs to drain another floater. The Wolves are containing the Morant and JV pick and roll. Since Jang has to show on Morant and worry about JV, the floater happens too quickly that the defense doesn't even contest a shot. On the Morant drive, Jang is preparing to help, while Culver is recovering to beat Morant to the rim. Morant stops and fades backwards, leaving Jang in no man's land, while Culver is flying towards the rim. There's an easy open look in front of the basket. Bates Diop continuously backpedals to stay in front of Morant and beats him to the spot. Once Morant gets in the paint, he stops for the floater. You can see how Bates Diop's momentum brings him away from Morant and can't contest effectively. Morant does miss this one, but once you do it enough, the defense starts to shift. On the pick and roll, Vonleh is showing up higher now to take away the floater. The crossover stuns Vonleh, since Morant can either stop for the floater or drive to the rim. Morant chooses the latter, since Vonleh was stunned and lays in the scoop shot. These floaters have quite a few beneficial effects. One of them is that it forces help defender to show higher. See how Melo is basically out of the paint, which isn't ideal, because JV can now roll right to the rim. This forces Nurkic to sink lower, but the Blazers recover well on the kickout. The Grizzlies attack the closeout again, and when Slow-Mo picks up his dribble in the paint, Nurkic commits, and an easy dump off to JV leads to the foul. The motion of the floater is quite similar to a pass, similar to jump passes in the air. Kemba jumps in the air, which freezes one of the best defenses in the Toronto Raptors, allowing a pass to Williams behind the defense, and eventually laying it in. The floater has the same effect in freezing the defense. When Morant picks up his dribble, it freezes KP deep in the paint, allowing JV to get right to the rim. Even without a screen, the Blazers are already in ice coverage. When Morant whips the ball to Clark at the high post, Whiteside is sliding towards the basket to cut off a drive. When Clark stops for a floater, his momentum is carrying him forward, while Whiteside has to combat his own momentum and jump forward to contest. More often than not, the defender contesting pick up a foul. The Grizzlies led the league in paint shots attempted outside the restricted area, and only second to the Pacers in making these shots. Although the Grizzlies don't take a lot of threes and are just middle in the pack in shots at the rim, they don't take a lot of mid-range jumpers either. Unlike the Spurs' mid-range centric offense, these floaters are easier to make on a consistent basis and warrants as much help rotations as drives to the rim. When defenses start to adjust to these floaters, the Grizzlies would generate open threes or go right back into their floater game again if the defense closes out hard. By the looks of the Grizzlies' pace, athletic roster, and franchise record 3-point attempts, it's easy to see the Grizzlies transition into the modern era. How they're doing this is another story. While the Grizzlies aren't jacking up threes like typical modern offenses, they're leveraging the three to get to their spots, sigging while everyone's sagging, just like the grit and grind era. Defensively, they're following a blueprint that has been effective in the regular season. The Grizzlies have already experimented with even more switching than the Bucks, which bodes well for Jenkins as a coach. The Grizzlies have an incredibly bright future, and it brings me joy to say that as a Grizzlies fan. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Remember to drop a like down below, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.